That demand was sent yesterday, as I've mentioned, 3 o'clock. We had to answer by 4 o'clock within an hour. We then simply answered that we are not going to adhere to the demand, and we are going ahead, and you're seeing now we are doing it. Our legal team was on standby last night to take action if there was any effort to interdict us from going ahead. But here we are today. Just with regard to the two parts and what we are asking that Mr. Fikile Mbalula should be held accountable, locally as well as internationally. Locally, we believe nobody is above the law. We believe in the rule of law. And that is exactly why we formed a few years ago the Afriforum Private Prosecution Unit. And we were fortunate to get a great team under the leadership of Advocate Harry Nell. And the whole team consists of those people that successfully prosecuted the late former police commissioner Jackie Selebi. And the reason why we had to do this is because we've seen in the National Prosecuting Authority over many years political interference that prevented people in high positions with political connections from being prosecuted. And that is the work we are doing. So today you will hear, in that regard, remember our prosecution unit focuses simply on the rule of law, on legal issues, on corruption issues, and are not part of a broader political scheme. Then with regard to our international campaign, as I've said, Ernst will give you some statements that was made by Mr. Mbalula. At the moment, Afriforum and the Solidarity Movement are working very hard to try and solve the conflict with the US. That's why we were in the US to ask, do not punish South Africa if you are angry with ANC politicians. And in that regard, we believe that we have made progress. But for some reason, Mr. Mbalula thinks it's a good idea to try and sabotage this process. It is actually not very clever. While you are in negotiations to solve a problem, for Mr. Mbalula to come and say over the last week or two that the US ambassador is drunk, that he's a racist, and make all those remarks, that is somebody that does not want to promote the interests of this country and the people of this country. It's a selfish attitude where he wants to promote his own ambitions to become the ANC leader. He wants to promote short-term gains with regard to the upcoming election for the ANC. And he simply does not care what happens to the country and the country's people. We know that punitive measures and economic sanctions will make the joblessness situation worse in the country. We will see growing poverty in the country. And it seems like Mr. Mbalula would just then go ahead. He loves posting photographs of himself with his designer clothes. You cannot, on the one hand, have somebody living in luxury, wearing designer clothes, and then doing things that will harm the normal people in this country. And that is why this dossier will also be used to tell the US and other countries that want to take punitive measures against the country, do not act against the country. If you want to act against people like Mr. Mbalula. And in the US, they have the Magnitsky Act, which allows for individual sanctions. And this dossier, we believe, would help to rather get this alternative. We do this out of loyalty to South Africa to prevent punitive action against the country. That is my introduction. Maybe the members of the media can give me some guidance. Should we play musical chairs and let Aaron sit this side, then we don't have to move all this stuff. Okay. Okay, you can.
Good morning. Thank you very much for coming here to report on this breaking news. This news that I firstly want to intro by waving to Mr. Mbalula, who is definitely not only himself tuning in, but also his army of lawyers that he rushed to appoint yesterday before he even knew what Afriforum was going to say. It seems like he had a feeling in his gut it was going to be substantial. And we have a saying in Afrikaans that goes, desperate katte maak desperate spronge. And I think in English I can translate it to, desperate cadres make very desperate jumps. And that's what we've been seeing for the past 24 hours. Not a man that's cool, calm and collected, but a man that's jumping from left to right, making tweets, deleting tweets, posting more, making more posts, deleting more posts, not being sure about what to say, thinking this is the right thing to say, then erasing it, saying, oh, that's not the right thing to say. That's panic behavior. That's not cool as a cucumber behavior. And I've got some bad news, unfortunately, for Mr. Mbalula. He likes to say the line of, we will not be bullied. Unfortunately, disclaimer, there will be bullying today. Bullying with the truth, bullying using the facts, not bullying using falsehoods. Because when you hit Afriforum with falsehoods, we hit back with the truth. And that's what will be happening here today. But firstly, who is Mr. Fikile Mbalula? I think that's the question that needs to be answered first. Not what is he most famous for, but what is he most infamous for? Is it the fact that every government department that he touches, he demonstrates a reverse Midas touch, that everything he touches turns to dysfunction and failure? Is that what he is most infamous for? Is it the trail of corruption and criminality allegations that follow him wherever he goes? Is it the gross displays of personal wealth while his people die, while the children of his people die in pit toilets? Is that the most infamous thing about Mr. Mbalula? Is it how he tries to sabotage and destroy South Africa's diplomatic relationship with key trading partners like the United States? Or is it the racist hatred he appears to hold for the white citizens of his country, particularly Afrikaners, a hatred that drips from every ranting and raving speech that he has been doing for the past few months and beyond, filled with falsehoods and disinformation? You decide what is the most defining characteristic of Mr. Mbalula, and after reading Afriforum's report, you will have an even clearer view. Let's start off firstly with a rotten record. During his tenure as Minister of Police from 2017 to 2018, we saw the number of murders in South Africa increase sharply, the largest single-year jump in over a decade and the largest total in 10 years. Under Mbalula, we also saw an increase in the amount of attempted murders as well as the amount of rapes. During this time, we also saw a dramatic increase in cash and transit heists as well as stock theft. As Minister of Transport between 2019 and 2023, Mbalula oversaw the collapse of passenger rail transport in trips in South Africa. This declined from about 209 million trips in 2019 to just 39 million trips in 2023. Total freight transported by rail fell by about 25 to 30% under Mbalula's watch as Minister of Transport, and logistics failures in terms of rail and ports cost the South African economy an estimated 500 billion rand in 2022 alone, which is more than 7% of GDP. Transnet also suffered heavy losses during this time, and ports managed by Transnet ranked among the world's worst during Mbalula's tenure. And now, under his watch as ANC Secretary General, it also appears that this reverse Midas touch has followed him. It was reported that the ANC now ranks as the 16th most corrupt organization in the world. This happened under Mbalula's watch. Congratulations, Fikile. It appears you've helped the ANC reach the final 16 of the Corruption Champions League. I hear the penalty shootouts are quite hectic. But now let's get to the policy extremism that we have seen from Mr. Mbalula and his cadres for the past few months, and especially in 2025. When it comes to policies, Mbalula is undeniably an extremist. At a 2026 rally, Mbalula reiterated the ANC's commitment to expropriation without compensation. and stated that the ANC also intends to push for more extreme policies, such as the nationalizing of the Reserve Bank. Fikile Mbalula has voiced his support and justification for the violent land confiscations of Zimbabwean dictator Robert Mugabe, who Mr. Mbalula considers a hero. In 2022, Mbalula blamed the economic crisis in Zimbabwe on US and UK sanctions, which exclusively targeted corrupt politicians, not the country as a whole, rather than the destructive policies of ZANU-PF, who him and his cadres love so much. Mbalula also blamed the UK for the horrific events that happened under Mugabe in Zimbabwe, when he said the British had failed to honor what they had promised ZANU-PF, and therefore, in his words, Robert Mugabe had no choice but to embark on a violent revolution. Ramaphosa echoed his ANC comrades' extreme sentiments in 2025. Speaking at an agricultural show in Zimbabwe, President Ramaphosa heaped praise on ZANU-PF's policies, labeling the dictator Robert Mugabe's violent land confiscations as, in his words, ambitious and essential. He emphasized that the South African government seeks to copy ZANU-PF's policies so that South Africa can become more like Zimbabwe, a sentiment that Mbalula seems to share. The Mugabe regime's land policies of the early 2000s being referred to here by Ramaphosa and by Mbalula involved chaotic and often violent land invasions and seizures. Private property rights were severely violated when these policies resulted in thousands of white farmers and their families literally being chased off their land, attacked, and even tortured and murdered. Mugabe's fast-track land reform program resulted in mass human rights violations and the collapse of the Zimbabwean agricultural sector and economy. This caused millions of Zimbabweans to swim across crocodile-infested rivers to flee ZANU-PF's utopia to South Africa. Mbalula has expressed his and the ANC's support multiple times for regimes with horrific human rights records, such as the ones in Cuba, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, North Korea, and Iran. In 2023, an ANC delegation of which Mbalula formed part held a meeting with the terrorist organization Hamas at the ANC's headquarters in Johannesburg. After the meeting, the ANC issued a media statement quoting Mbalula when he said, "The meeting underscored the paramount importance of unity among Palestinian organizations such as the Fatah movement and Hamas in their collective struggle against occupation and collective struggle against occupation and for self-determination." This is a man who praises a terrorist organization responsible for thousands of deaths and tortures. In 2024, Mbalula stated on X that, in his words, "We remain forever inspired by Fidel Castro's fearless, radical, and revolutionary struggle against the brutal system of capitalism." At a media briefing in 2023, Mbalula once again showed his extremist views when he defended Naledi Pandor, then Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, after her contact with the terrorist organization Hamas. Mbalula stated, "She has been insulted left and right. There's nothing wrong with what she is doing." What he's talking about is a representative of the South African government meeting with a terrorist organization, something that Mbalula thinks is a fantastic thing. Next is the sabotaging of diplomacy. In 2025, Mbalula described the decision by the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio to decline attending the G20 summit in South Africa as shameful and accused the US of cowardly diplomacy. Speaking at a conference in 2025, Mbalula accused the US of displaying, in his words, fascist characteristics and reinforcing outdated racist ideologies. He continued stating that the geopolitical landscape is currently undergoing, in his words, enormous shifts with the rise of ultra-right governments driven by fascist ideologies, end quote. And in a media briefing in 2025, Mbalula dared the US to bring on sanctions, in his words. He reiterated that the ANC will not abandon its racially discriminatory policies even under threat of South Africa being sanctioned. In March 2026, Mbalula accused without evidence the new United States ambassador to South Africa, Brent Bozell, of attending a meeting with the ANC while drunk. No evidence provided, just a slanderous lie. My standards of what it means to do everything in your power to repair a diplomatic crisis very clearly differ wildly from what Mr. Mbalula sees as doing everything you can to repair a diplomatic crisis. Accusing the person on the other side of the table during negotiations to defuse a diplomatic crisis of being drunk at the meeting is not how you defuse that crisis. Mbalula clearly holds anti-white views. In referring to the Afrikaner refugees to the United States, Mbalula falsely claimed in 2025 that within a week the refugees that landed in the US started killing each other. That is his words. No proof, no basis for this claim. He just thought it up, it seems. He continues by claiming that killing each other and black people en masse is typical behavior of white South Africans. Is that the stance of someone who stands for the truth, who does not hold hatred for a racial group based on their skin color? Mbalula said, talking about white South Africans, this is what they do, killing each other and black people. Is that something that a non-extremist does, slandering an entire racial group as bloodthirsty murderers? He also dismissed the Afrikaner refugees, some of whom fled after surviving multiple farm attacks, as car guards. In 2026, Mbalula once again falsely labeled the Afrikaner refugees to the United States as car guards and blatantly lied that they were now returning to South Africa en masse. Fikile Mbalula never misses an opportunity to express the hatred he clearly holds for white South Africans, the citizens of his country, especially Afrikaners, racial prejudices. What needs to also be emphasized is the fact that Mr. Mbalula is very clearly a serial liar when it comes to spreading lies to try and not just destroy, but also completely defame anyone that tries to criticize him or anyone that seems to just be someone that he does not like. Mr. Mbalula accused a principal of raping a child, if you remember the Justice for Kwekwe scandal on social media. Claims that have been completely debunked, shown to be complete falsehoods. He also called this principal an animal, dehumanizing him to the fullest extent, saying that this is not what a human being does. That is why Afriforum has opened a crimen injuria case against Mr. Mbalula to ensure that he faces justice. But also there's a civil case against him as well for these defamatory lies these crimen injuria lies that he has spread against innocent people. What we have here is a serial liar that lies without a conscience, will destroy anyone if it ensures that it will help him hold on to power and achieve his agenda, even if those people are completely innocent. Where there is smoke, there is fire. And currently there are massive smoke signals above Mr. Mbalula's activities and conduct. Afriforum will ensure that this information is passed on to the relevant people and authorities and ensure that the truth and justice prevails in this case and that Fikile Mbalula is held accountable. And I can look straight into the camera and address Mr. Mbalula directly. Justice will prevail. Your intimidation tactics have failed. And prepare to face justice. I've got a very good team behind me alongside Afriforum and our private prosecution unit to ensure that justice prevails. And that's why Afriforum's private prosecution unit exists in the first place, to take on politicians specifically who believe that they are above the law because they have been getting away with so much for so long. And that's why I also just want to use the opportunity to thank all Afriforum's members that make the private prosecution unit and all of our campaigns possible, that make the things like the Mbalula files, the Mbalula Dossier possible, which are now going to be released today. Thank you very much to our members that make that possible, and if you're not a member yet, I do encourage you to become a member today to make more of this fight for the truth possible. And now I'm going to give the floor over to Mr. Garinel